Hey, welcome back. Today, let's talk about the Scrum team. We say that Scrum is a framework for agile software development, and it defines a couple of principles and a couple of rules. And it also defines who's part of the Scrum team. It's a small team of people, so ideally around 7 people or less, not more than 10. And it consists of one Scrum Master, one product owner, and developers. And it's important to notice that in the Scrum team, there's no sub teams, there are no hierarchies. It's just a unit of professionals, of people working together and who are focused on one objective at a time. That's the product goal. That's the goal to deliver and increment a small part of the product that, well, we are supposed to be developing there. Scrum teams are cross-functional. That means across all the team members, they've got all the skills necessary to create value, to create business value each sprint. They're also self-managing, meaning they internally decide. They decide themselves who does what, when, and how. Okay, so that's not the typical project manager sort of divides the tasks up and assigns a task to each team member. The Scrum team itself defines their own work and works self-managed. They have to take care of delivering the stuff by the end of the sprint, by the end of this iteration. That's typically 2 weeks. And that's possible because it's small enough to remain nimble, right? And large enough to complete significant work within a sprint. So we said that between 7 and 10 people usually. Smaller teams usually communicate better and are more productive. And because then if teams become too large, they should consider reorganizing themselves into multiple Scrum teams, each focused on the same product. The Scrum team is responsible for all product-related activities, from stakeholder collaboration, verification, maintenance, operation, experimentation, research and development, anything else that might be required. They are structured and empowered by the organization to manage their own work. And that's very, very important. And that's sometimes the thing where when organizations or people or companies say, well, yeah, of course we are agile and we do Scrum, ask themselves whether the teams are really, their Scrum teams, the Scrum developers are really allowed to manage their own work, right? Working in sprints, these time periods, these increments, typically 2 weeks, maybe 1 week, 3 weeks. More than 3 weeks is very, very rare. And it's important that the team is able to develop the product within that sprint in a sustainable pace. We don't really have what's called crunch time, when we are really adopting Scrum. Crunch time is was used still used in the games industry, game development for computer games, where usually you've got a hard deadline. You want to ship the thing, you want to, deliver the boxes to the shops where people can buy it, usually for Christmas or another kind of deadline. So usually at the end of the project, where the deadline is near, people are forced to work long hours. And this is known as crunch time. And we don't want that in Scrum. We want to keep working at the sustainable pace. That means steady. We want to make steady progress, but we don't want to power ourselves and burn ourselves out there. The team by itself, the entire team is accountable for creating a valuable, useful increment every sprint. Okay, so the team as a team. It's not like individuals, and it's not acceptable that one developer blames another one because he didn't deliver it. No, as a team, we win together or we lose together. Okay. So we talked about the developers as one of these 3 roles: product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. And developers are simply the people in the Scrum team that are committed to creating an aspect of a usable increment each sprint. And it's not just the software developers, could be testers, could be user experience designers, could be artists, Could be even audio engineers if you've got something where you need to create some auditive output, right? So basically, all the people who are working together to create this increment, to create this little piece of software where we've got more functionality at the end of the sprint than before, these are the developers. And the developers are accountable for creating their own plan for the sprint. That's called the sprint backlog. It's basically a list of tasks that need to be finished by the end of the sprint in order to achieve the goal. And they sort of organize themselves, but they need to be adhering to a quality definition called the definition of done, meaning they themselves have defined when a task is defined as being done. The developers are accountable to create their own plan for the sprint, for this 2 weeks time period, the sprint backlog. So they themselves really divide the tasks that need to be done, that need to be finished in order to achieve the goal. So it's not like there's a project manager telling them what to do. They are themselves responsible, and they're also empowered to, define their own plan, what they need to do in order to achieve the goal. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. And this can vary widely across organizations, but usually the product owner is accountable for the product backlog management, which is the list of things that we need to do, a list of functionalities, usually written as user stories. And that's a topic for another episode in our podcast. But basically, the product owner gathers requirements and describes them in a way that then the Scrum team can take them and break them apart into the little tasks that they need to do in order to achieve the user story and to achieve the little increment of stuff that provides more value. And the product owner is the one organizing that and prioritizing this product backlog list, this list of things that need to be done. And he needs to, this is not his own, he's responsible for that. So overall, it's his responsibility to create that priority. But in order to create that priority, he communicates with the customer, with internal stakeholders, with the team, because sometimes it's not possible to do something before another thing has been finished. So these are all the things and bits and pieces and information that the product owner collects. And then he sort of translates that into the list of things and the order of things that need to be done in the product backlog. It's important that the product owner is one person. This is not a group. This is not a committee. The product owner represents the needs of many stakeholders in the product backlog. And if they want to change something, then they need to talk to the product owner, need to convince them. But he is the one person who is responsible to maintain that list and to order that list. The third role, the Scrum Master, is accountable for establishing Scrum as a process, as defined in the Scrum Guide that you can get from scrumguides.org. And this is also what I'm quoting here most of the time. So the Scrum Master helps everyone understand Scrum as in theory and also in practice, both within the Scrum team, so internally, and the organization, so sort of semi-externally. He or she is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness. So that they enable the Scrum team to improve its practices within the boundaries of the Scrum framework, of course. But they are true leaders. They serve the Scrum team and the larger organization, but they are themselves not really responsible to deliver any kind of value in the software itself, in the product itself. They provide value by serving the Scrum team. For example, they can coach team members in self-management, cross-functionality. They help the Scrum team focus on creating high-value increments that meet the definition of done, this sort of quality definition that the team gave themselves. If there's got any problem, if a team member goes to the Scrum Master and says, "Hey, I need I need that kind of information," or "I need that person to do X," but they don't do that, then the Scrum Master can help remove that impediments, that roadblocks, and organizes it to go them away. And Scrum Master also ensures that all Scrum events take place. We're going to talk about the Scrum meetings and the Scrum events in a later episode, but that's also part of the responsibility of the Scrum Master, and he or she makes sure that these meetings are positive and productive and kept within the time box. Okay, so these are basically the different roles in the Scrum team. We've got the developers responsible to create the value, to sort of translate what has been written before in the user stories and to break it down into tasks and to manage themselves to achieve that task by the end of the sprint. And then, produce business value by creating working software, working increments of something that's working now after these 2 weeks are over, that hasn't been there before. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of that product that the team creates, the developers create. And the Scrum Master makes sure that everybody has all the tools necessary, that the necessary information is there, that the processes that Scrum defines, and which is not that many, but basically that everybody's playing by the rules. He's sort of like the adult in the room who you can talk to if there's a problem, and who himself or themselves are identifying any kind of problems that are hindering the team.